let us know how we can be helpful to you, and we'd be happy to get that going. And we even have a new assistant, no longer virtual. My college kid is here, and I'm putting him to work. So if there's anything that he can do to help you and remind you, please keep him busy.
All right, well, Marcel, I'm glad I'm amusing you so much today with my unicorn background. Just so everyone knows, PJ at Laundry was kind enough in the 7 Ingredients Slack channel to drop some crazy images for our amusement to use as Zoom backgrounds. So thank you, PJ. You're awesome. Tim and I are partaking. Marcel, what's up with your background?
Oh man, I was looking at your background and it looks so funny. I'm like, I can't keep it up with it. My background is the background that we designed for a project. It was in the cemetery, in the graveyard of our, past work. And I was like, okay, this is a good one for today. Sort of like happy.
Awesome. Well, in the spirit of trying to be on time, Tim, I'm going to share my screen. And why don't you give us a little preview of what we're going to cover today?
This is great. We know that the PPP and all that is on our mind. It's been on our mind for the last week. I honestly feel like I did in the 1988 when I was trying to buy Michael Jackson tickets to his Bad tour. And you had to dial in as fast as possible to get on that ticket hotline to get those tickets. This government subsidy that's coming out, or stimulus coming out, feels the same way. It feels like those of you who are ready, first in line, ready to refresh your screen and get that application in there. I know that pressure is on, and many of us are doing that preparation. But really, from Marcel and I were talking yesterday, and we want to have this perspective of this isn't the answer. The PPP and EIDL loans are not going to get you out of this cycle. We want you to be thinking of and have a clear vision of what it's going to take in June and July and August to keep your business moving forward, and how that vision that you already have, work that you already do on a week-by-week, day-by-day basis is what we're going to use and put those practices into place to get us out of this. That little loan we get from the PPP will be a far memory come December. And we want you guys to be viable in business at that time.
So Marcel, what's your take on that overall topic? Do you have a sense of, you likewise are probably scrambling to sort out, okay, I got to talk with my banker, my accountant, and see about these stimulus beliefs, benefits, whatever is out there for me. But then once I get this paperwork out, do I just sort of business as usual for the next 8 weeks and let the government sort of help me cover that? But then what?
Yeah, well, I was on the phone with Tim for about almost an hour and a half yesterday.
I'm sorry to hear that.
We were brainstorming all sorts of actually that's our therapy session.
Yeah, it is, right.
We call each other. We're like, okay, let's talk about this, because you don't want to overwhelm the people that you live with this subject. But so to me, it's like this. I'm seeing this whole PPP and all this incentive as like a Band-Aid. It's like a Band-Aid to cover just for a little bit. The way I'm seeing this whole incentive is I'm getting 8 weeks of free labor. But what would you do with it? What can you do to actually build the future problems that we're going to have? And I love when Tim was mentioning that, I think yesterday, when he was saying that there's never going to be another $2 trillion. Let's just realize that. So basically, at this point, companies like ours, we have a chance to get 8 weeks to plan for the next 6 months. So I think the next 8 weeks are so important that you can okay, how can I plan what's going to happen in the future? What kind of actions that I'm doing? Because now I have time, I have labor, you have all these things, but then you have to put a plan in place to set you up for the future. So I feel like, as I was talking to Tim, right now, I see a lot of motion in terms of people reaching out. We have projects, we have this in terms of state. My head is actually not now. My head is in probably October, November, when the elections are coming, when things are slowing down. Maybe we have a second wave of virus. I don't know. So I'm trying to like understand what can I do in the next 8 weeks to, so in like maybe 4 to 6 months, I'm not suffering. That's where my head is at.
Yeah. So one of the things I've been working with people when I'm doing their cash flow is this. I've been I feel like when I start the conversation, people want to know how to survive through June. And what I've been trying to do is restructure it so that they're prepared at the end of June to move forward or be able to have momentum starting at the end of June into the future. So not to spend out all of your money and then figure out hopefully a job comes in at the end of June, but really prepare yourself, backload your company in a way to move yourself forward. Some of the reason why I do that is I'm trying to create a long-term vision of what the problem really is. And to Marcel, to your point is that we know that there are seasonal slowdowns already. They've been happening for years and years and years. And the fall has that possibility of being a slow fall just because falls happen that way. So we can be hitting June and July and then September have another cycle unrelated to a COVID quarantine, but really something that just happened industry-wide. So to get some tools in place and start looking at the perspective moving forward. And what I started realizing in a lot of these conversations is few people have the vision of what their life's going to look like after this 8 weeks. So you and I were processing of like, where does this vision come from? How do we know we have something in our head, in our mind that we can depend on that shows up every time we need it to? And one of the examples you gave was when it comes down to ownership, you're the owner. It's like having a baby, and you start to know that business, your clients, the routines, them intimately, and then things happen. So you respond to in the moment, but the stuff that was true before is still true today. And that begins the process of vision.
Marcel, you've been saying for, I don't know, the past couple of weeks, what's your expression? It's like the same expertise or same knowledge, but applied in a new way. But you had a really cool way of saying it.
Yeah, so it's the same tools, but it's the same knowledge that we have, but now different applications, right? So we know what to do. We know exactly, like, for example, that you have to do your routines, that you have to do the planning, you have to do marketing, you have to check on your people, get everyone excited. I feel like all of those things probably in the next 8 weeks it needs to be like amplified, probably like really think about the planning, really think about like what's going to happen with my company in the next, couple of months, but also having different plans. And I'll go back to probably our first conversation, Tim, when we were talking about the green and the yellow and the red flag. So what are those scenarios that you can play with in the future? I have one thinking that, I've been working on, which is I feel like some of these schedules are going to be shifting. So I'm trying to use, I'm realizing that the summer is going to be work already in my head, so summer is going to be work. Forget about the vacations, forget about all that stuff that you're planning. Summer is going to be a little bit where work is going to be happening, but in a sense, to get those projects, I need to start working now, working on my routine, making sure that my marketing is on top, and making sure that my clients understand that I'm still here, that I can provide solutions, that they can work with me trying to find that, that answer that they probably don't have yet. So I'm trying to see if I can use those resources from the government, which is like, this 8 weeks. So I can be like, okay, now I have this time to plan and to start, taking actions, because I know the routine. There's no such a new tool. I think that would be a new normal, but the tools are the same. We all know what we have to do.
Yeah. I can't take Joel serious anymore looking at that. So I'm going to call a truce on these virtual backgrounds. And I have to imagine if I can't take Joel serious, no one's taking me serious with my pet, the dolphins floating around here.
All right. Well, I'll take it off. We'll go. Here we are. That's funny. I was about to share a couple things that happened today in the weekly Jumpstart Q&A of people already starting to look ahead and to start imagining and be inspired about this new normal that's emerging. So I have a few goodies that I'll share later as we get into the conversation. But I think, Marcel, you're nailing it. And Tim, you as well. Sure, this is going to, quote, get me through. If I get this money from the government, it will get me through whatever, June. But then what? Like, how do I know I'm actually solid? I'm running a viable business beyond that. And Tim, I know you and I saw this happen just yesterday when we were sitting with one owner and going through a cash flow, and we looked ahead to, oh, okay, 12 weeks from now or 10 weeks from now, we see this dip. We've got to fill this. And it was amazing how just giving it specificity, not, okay, go find $250,000. Good luck. That's your job. But instead saying, can we get a 50? Can we get a 20? What if we got 3 10s right here? And just being able to lay that out on a spreadsheet in a very simple way, everyone was like, oh, I know a client that gives us one of those almost 3 times a year. I know another client that gives us one of those big ones once a year, and it's almost that time. It's amazing how did you describe it? The way your brain kind of fills in the blanks once you have enough specificity.
Yeah, like if I say, go find a $10,000 or $20,000 job, your mind can almost see it. You almost get a sense of like, oh, wait a second, I have a client that calls me all the time. And in the specific situation that you're talking about, I mentioned something like, what you need is like 5 15s. And he goes, oh, I have a client that has a stack of them. Basically, it's work that we usually don't like to do, but I could go do that for 6 weeks or 8 weeks. And it just filled in their production pipeline, hypothetically, filled in the production line, and then they can do it. Then they can go out and act that out. They can call that client, accept that work, do the analysis, get to the other side of it.
Well, it's also nice that they now have something specific they can drop into a very simple sales pipeline and say, okay, every week, are we filling these up? Did we stack these up? Is this meeting what we expected or what we hoped for? And if not, we adjust. But it gives you something to read and respond to and collaborate around as a team.
Yeah, so that's why I think of, like, when I use the term vision, it's the stuff that it's the mechanism inside your mind that can find that pathway to success. And my belief is that a lot of creative business owners already use that and exercise that muscle every single day. A client gives you a problem to solve, a creative problem in this case, and then your mind opens up and it can think about the pieces and put them together, align them up, and then in your case, make something gorgeous. In my case, I can't get anything pretty out of my head. But the thought of like what that stuff is, that's the same mechanism we're going to use to get us past this vision. So Marcel has a specific item in mind where he knows, hey, he's going to prepare through these 8 weeks to think through what the cycles are going to be like up and down, summer and fall. And if that's true, now he has a pathway to start imagining what's the breakdown of that. And when you do that, honestly, it's almost like making a production budget, isn't it? Put it on a schedule, put the payments out there are going to be there, anticipate some of the disasters are going to happen, and the pitfalls and the upsides that you can manage, and you can work yourself through that cycle. Those are the principles we're looking for. That's what the entrepreneurial formula means to me. The needs plus resources equals solution. That's what right now we're imagining what those needs are. And then our mind can find the resources to put them in place, line them up into a strategy. And now you have a solution for that cycle. And you can run those every day. It's a healthy exercise to run through the potential opportunities and rework them. That's what we want to get down to, the vision casting here.
I want to say something here, Tim, because I've been getting questions, people getting stuck on like how to start conversations, right? And I will go back to like sort of like an exercise that I do probably on a daily basis, like have conversations with everyone about it, try to understand the problem. Because even when I start conversations with some of my clients on a personal level, I start understanding the problems that they're having inside their own companies. And then that gives me information so I can work on a strategy to try to help them to solve like their problems. So for example, I was chatting with a client that they do sports, and this client is a little worried about what's going to happen in their design department. It's like, I don't know if the design department is going to exist because there's no sports going on now. And then it's like in my head, it's like, is there something I can do to help them to save their jobs in terms of like, maybe I can do something with them, or maybe I can, knowing that they're going to, lay off a few people. I know that will be the need for graphics in that, department. So there's a bunch of information that you can start getting if you're having those conversations. So even like sometimes I even like talk to people, let's say even a freelancer sometimes can give you like some information. So I try to have conversation with people all the time so I can start getting all those like, all those informations.
Yeah, Marcel, here's this is I love you, right? You're a very verbal processor. So I have this saying that I say conversations change the world. And you're so you have the ability, and you're very proactive in the idea of like reaching out to others and connecting the pieces. If you think what's really happening when it comes to vision is like you have this idea, and you know that when you reach out and you begin that conversation, it's actually working itself into reality, isn't it? Like you're bouncing it off of somebody, you're testing the waves from them, you're getting a sense of like what is possible. You kind of specialize a little bit more based on the input that you're getting, and then now you're growing that idea or that vision you have starts getting some traction. That's a really great way to start moving that future into reality. Is you can take a vision, plan it out, create a theory or a process or some ideas of what you think might be needed to line up those resources to meet the solution, and then reach out to people, begin the conversation. You can do it virtually, you can do it actually on the phone, and start really thinking through what that reality is going to be. You can even get a sense from your clients of like, hey, I wonder what your long-term needs are going to be opposed to your short-term needs, and begin that theoretical conversation with them.
Yeah.
So, by the way, those people who are not verbal processors, writing it down has the same impact, doesn't it? Like to have an idea and start planning it out and writing it and being processing that way, mapping it out on what's the program you use, Marcel? MindNode?
MindNode.
Yeah, start planning it out that way. Those are great ways too. You're basically trying to find those thoughts and find the attachments from them. That's where that vision, conceptual vision, becomes a practical reality. My concern is that some of us now are so myopic and small-minded in thinking about just 8 weeks and 6 weeks and 4 weeks, and tomorrow morning to get the application in to save the day. We don't want you to think that way. We want you to know that if the infusion comes in, you have a strategy to play out. If that infusion of capital doesn't come in, you also have a strategy. But no matter what, you're going to be in business, right? We're going to work through those strategic steps week by week, project by project, resource by resource, and get those things lined up so that your business is viable and sustainable.
Yeah, I agree with that, but it's the sense of like, even when I talk to, for example, a designer the other day hit me up and he's like, "How are you?" And I'm like, "Hey, do you have 5 minutes? Let's talk on the phone." All of a sudden, I started talking to a designer who's a freelancer, and this guy was telling me a lot of information about other clients and other things that are happening, and I'm just taking notes. I'm like, okay, because all we're trying to do at this point is trying to predict the future. What's going to be the new normal? What's going to happen in the next few months, or even like in about a year? But I feel like it's all about mapping, and the conversation will help us to sort of like start mapping, even though that it's not going to be exactly how you're planning, but at least you have like a clear vision of like what that might happen. So at least you can start planning. Because now the problem that we were talking yesterday, Tim, is that we are trying to hold on to like an information, or every day I get myself like, is there any progress on the medicine? Is there a progress on like, is the government shut down? This lockdown would be over by the end of the month. So we're trying to get, to hold on to something, but there's nothing there. So we can't control that information, but what we can control is the information that we're trying to get from other people. That's the information you can't control.
Great. Let's get to some practical things that people can do to pull this vision out. Joel, I know that you're a Dan Sullivan follower and fan. Give us one of the techniques you might have learned in Dan Sullivan days, or just in the days of running Impossible, that you always help kind of pull that vision out.
Well, okay, I'll give one example that I'll call it sort of an old principle that's having to be reborn. And that is in Jumpstart today, we were just processing this concept we call experts travel, right? Which was something that I learned not only from Dan Sullivan, but also David C. Baker. And the concept is simple, right? That if you're an expert, you're going to get out there, you're going to travel, you're going to go to New York or LA and go bring back the business. Well, in Jumpstart, we were challenging ourselves to say, well, how do we do that now? We can't do that. So I guess we just sit behind our computers and send emails. And we said, no, let's revisit this entrepreneurial formula. Let's get practical. Okay, needs plus resources. We have this resource, but the need's evolving. So what do we do? And we ultimately reinterpreted the phrase and said, you know what, experts Zoom. And what we agreed was, we're not going to call anyone anymore. We're not even going to use the word call. We're just going to use the word Zoom, because it's incumbent on us, if we're going to be experts, that we connect in a way that obviously builds a relationship. But we also recognized something interesting. The concept behind travel and being an expert who travels is that you are willing to make investments that others aren't. Like, you're willing to get on a plane and go to New York and tell someone, I'm going to be in town, let's meet. I want to have a connection with you. Well, how do you do that if you're not traveling? And you suddenly realize, oh, I have resources I can invest. I can invest time, expertise, talent, ideas, my team, all kinds of things, and say to your clients, hey, let's Zoom. I have something I want to share with you that's awesome or cool or helpful, or just to hear about what's going on in your world. And so everyone is now creating this new revised idea. And there's a whole other level of it, because we realized maybe there's even a product or a service based on Zoom that we can offer clients out there that is going to actually be so useful and so valuable that we can even charge for it. So it's the idea of doing a Zoom workshop or some of these other things. So
I love that.
It's very much in development, but I'm very excited about it, just to see the creative minds starting to wrap their head around, okay, we can do this. This is what we do every day.
Yeah, I love that. Kind of reworking the principles. Marcel, we have a couple more minutes left. Do you want to share one idea of that you use to get the vision out of your head and out into practice?
Oh, he's on mute. Unmute yourself, sir.
Sorry, it's my first time using computers.
I thought he was dancing. Yeah, I thought he was like, I thought he made you nervous.
No. I think to me, it's like I'm using I'm trying to grab into the line of like planning a little more. So I'm a big planner, so I plan all the time, but I'm trying to emphasize the planning situation in my head. So I'm like, okay, I need to get into planning. I need to start mapping this out. So I'm trying to do this mind node with like planning, conversations, cash flow, planning, conversation, cash flow. But also I cannot forget about the creative quality. So I feel like I was even talking to some of my friends yesterday. I've been so busy during this time because I feel like I have more work to do, not only with the work at the studio, but now also the situation requires more planning on my side. So I'm trying to have more conversations with the people that I trust so I can plan a little better. So that's my piece of advice, and that's the exercise that I'm doing right now.
Yeah, what I love about you, Marcel, is that when you're thinking about the concepts, you're imagining the conversations you're going to have along the way. And that sure does help, doesn't it? It kind of gets you over the hurdle of the thoughts and how you're going to roll out these ideas. And that mind node and that building up the conversations really play itself out.
Yeah.
I think my advice would be, one, to trust yourself. I want you to know you already have all the tools necessary to create a vision and work out that vision. It's like the reality of finding a vision is actually you find it in freedom instead of hard work. So give yourself the opportunity for your mind to do the work and think through it. Give yourself the ability to feel okay with failure of an idea. So don't be afraid to think through something and just concept it like Marcel does. Call people, ask questions, start building up on that. But lastly, I kind of want people to understand like vision is something that you uniquely have, and it's what's going to set you apart. So many of the issues that we're about ready to take on, which is to distinguish ourselves from competitors, to start working through the sales cycle again, that more and more and more your presentation and your purpose and your knowledge of who you are has to come forward. That use your vision to be that anchor and the core of that. That's what we're looking forward to. Today we did not want to talk about the business loans, thinking that's going to be the savior to it. We wanted you to encourage you that you have the tools, the opportunity is going to be there. The hard work is going to be part of it, and we're all going to do it together. And on the other side, we're going to be successful and knowledgeable and thriving because we put our visions in place. So we want you to rest on that. Hey, as I promised, there's a hard out today at 1 o'clock because many people are going to go do the Chase webinar. My theory is there going to be more viewers watching that Chase webinar today than the Super Bowl. They're going to have like a Nielsen rating from this webinar they're about ready to do. So we don't want to compete with that. But we know there's still many questions about the loans. We're putting things out there on Slack as much as possible. Get your resources together and reach out to your banker or your accountant or CPA and meet this stuff. Get us going. Before, as I sign off, Joel, and I'll hand it off to you because I know that you're going to launch something. I actually want to mention Adam Espinoza at Friends of Mine in Colorado. He's been a longtime client of ours. And he actually is currently affected by the COVID virus and is in the hospital. So the praying sorts, if you guys can just pray for him, he's part of our community. He's one of the great contributors to RevThink over the years, and our hearts and spirits are with him as he's kind of working through this. So please let you know that the infection is real and it's part of our community, and let's be in support for one another in that way.
Yeah, thanks for that, Tim. Adam, my heart goes out to you, man. I hope you're doing well. Jeremy says that you're getting through it. So best wishes and sending good vibes all your way. Also, I have been promising this sales pipeline basics module for some time. A lot of you have been asking about it. I'm going to release it tomorrow. So it's my gift to everyone on Friday. You'll be able to get that from me. If you need to be added to the list, just DM me in Slack, and I'll make sure that you're on the list. But we'll also share a link here tomorrow on the live stream. Okay, we're 1 minute from our hard out. Tim, how'd we do? Marcel, are you ready to sign off?
Yes, I just want to, if you guys have the link for the webinar for Chase, would you guys mind sharing that here on the chat so people can watch it?
I think it's in Slack. Ethan's going to drop it there. I'm not sure that we've got it, but if someone's got it, drop it in the chat here. That would be awesome.
Okay, sounds good. Well, awesome. We'll go through the questions that you guys posted here, and then we'll talk to you guys tomorrow.
Until tomorrow.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Marcel. Thanks, everyone. See you tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.